Jay here for Stretford, Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm outside Old Trafford and it's a bit chilly. I've got my parka on and I've got a jumper on underneath, wrapping up warm because winter is here. As you'd expect, most of the news this morning centres around Manchester United's 1-0 defeat to Arsenal, the third Premier League home defeat so far this season, the third out of 4. We've taken 1 point out of a possible 12. I don't need to remind you of that, but I have done, so apologies. Talking of apologies, Paul Pogba has held his hands up after the game. He gave away the penalty, the decisive penalty that ended up being the goal in the 1-0 win for Arsenal, the 1-0 loss to Manchester United. He says, maybe I was a bit out of breath and it made me do this stupid mistake. He spoke after the game, Paul Pogba, because, you know, regardless of what you think about Paul Pogba, and I thought his performance yesterday wasn't good enough, you know, he did come out, he did speak about it, he did sort of speak to the media. You can maybe give him some credit for that because it would have been easy for him not to want to do that. He said also on the penalty incident, I felt like I touched him a bit and I knew it was in the box. I shouldn't have given away the penalty like that. I'm not the best defensively in the box, but I can learn and work on that. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer also spoke about it as well, because apparently it's the third time that Pogba's conceded a penalty during Solskjaer's time as United manager. So he spoke about it and he just said, Paul's held his hands up. He knows he could and should have done better in this instance. He knows if he stays on his feet, it will be okay because the boy isn't going anywhere. Now, this has led to, obviously, anything with Paul Pogba generates a lot of news. There's some news stories doing the rounds about what's going to happen with Paul Pogba, not just based on this, but other factors as well. I think there was a 1-year deal has been, extension to his deal was triggered, which takes him up to 2022. We know that happened, I think, a few weeks ago. People looking at his stats, I think there was an article in the BBC where if you look at his stats, it sort of gives you an idea of how yesterday it was sort of a real mixed bag. In terms of passing accuracy, 87.5%. That was the best from United's attacking players for Paul Pogba. But the fact is, he lost possession 15 times, which is the most frequent of all his teammates, so of anyone. So then you look at it again, it says Scott McTominay was the only Manchester United player to cover more ground than Paul Pogba. But again, there was no shots, and that's a poor return, and, you know, it wasn't an effective performance by anyone in a Manchester United shirt, to be honest with you, against Arsenal, least of all Paul Pogba. So he's, you know, he's got to take some blame, and he has done. He also says, you know, we have to do better, the team and myself, but it starts with me. I cost us the goal today with the penalty, but it was a poor team performance. We need to do a lot better. So he's speaking about himself and he's speaking about the team, and I think he's right on both counts. I thought it was a poor performance by the team, and I think the penalty did cost us. So I can't disagree too much with what he said there. As you'd expect, as always happens, Roy Keane's got something to say about this. He was on Sky Sports yesterday, he was their pundit, and he says, he was talking to Sky Sports after the game. He said, we spoke before the game about saying being on the front foot, being aggressive, you're the home team, and there were none of those things. On top of all that, there was a lack of energy, enthusiasm, a real lack of quality, and that really concerned me in the second half when they were getting in half decent positions and chasing the match, but there was no quality, no composure. Some of the performances were really poor. Ollie must be scratching his head. He also says, we kept talking after the Spurs game and whether they turned a corner. It's the longest corner ever. I actually agree with Roy Keane there. I remember when Moyes was in charge, when we beat Arsenal 1-0 in 2013, was it? Just before the international break, and saying then, oh, I think we've turned a corner. That was 7 years ago. I'm still waiting for this corner to be turned. We've still not had a real title challenge since then. And already, what are we in? 7 games, is it? Already 4 home games into the season? And it looks like any slight delusions of a title challenge we may have had, or some of us may have had this season, are already over. It isn't good enough. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is under a little bit of pressure, but the players have to step up. Keane talking about the game as well, obviously. Went on to talk about Marcus Rashford. King Marcus, Sir Marcus, Dr. Marcus, however you want to term him. He said, I looked at Rashford closely today, who's had a lot of plaudits over the past few months, and he's still a young man. But his body language was shocking, really shocking. He was shrugging his shoulders when things weren't going his way. You roll your sleeves up at Manchester United. When things aren't going your way, that's when you look at your leaders and characters. He also says, I don't see any leaders out there right through the whole team, from the experienced players. You are expected to roll sleeves up. That's what characters at Man United are about. Like Nobby Stiles, heart of a lion. Obviously, Nobby Stiles unfortunately passed away last week. One thing I will say about Keane is I won't have any Marcus Rashford slander ever. I don't think Marcus Rashford doesn't care or wasn't rolling his sleeves up. I just thought it was a pretty poor performance. I also thought Marcus Rashford was booted all over the pitch for most of the game, and that may have had some effects on him. I could go on about Roy Keane's quotes, but I don't think we need to. We all know it wasn't good enough, and I'm sure you can make your own mind up about who's to blame. Also, we spoke about Nobby Stiles. Also on a similar vein is the sad news about Bobby Charlton having dementia. Manchester United released a statement yesterday saying everyone at Manchester United is saddened that this terrible disease has afflicted Sir Bobby Charlton, and we continue to offer our love and support to Sir Bobby and his family. Obviously, everyone on the channel as well. Our thoughts with Sir Bobby Charlton, someone who's actually been on the channel, and his family, and we wish him well. In terms of Manchester United and transfer rumours and transfer news, now, whenever there's a poor result or a bad defeat, you expect the usual stories to start popping up about directors of football. Maybe we're linked with one or two players. Hasn't really materialised this morning. I know it's only early days. It was only yesterday that we had that defeat. But there has been one or two sort of stories that have been doing the rounds over the weekend and again have resurfaced this morning. There was an interesting tweet last night from Konstantin Ekner, someone we had on the channel not long ago. He said that Bayern Munich have withdrawn their contract offer for David Alaba. His contract expires next summer. One to keep an eye on. Was briefly linked with Manchester United. I don't know whether there's any serious interest in him there again, but when you hear that his contract offer has been withdrawn, I wouldn't be surprised if we start getting linked with him, and maybe that's one in the summer where you'll start seeing Alaba to Manchester United rumours. Another player we were linked with that sort of popped up again is Paulo Dybala. Remember him? The Argentinian lad that plays for Juventus. Now, apparently, this is coming out of reports in Italy, Dybala's agent, Jorge Anton, is reportedly going to return to Argentina with talks to extend the contract with Juve stalling. Dybala's contract runs until June 2022, but the Argentinian has been pushing to sign a new deal with the old lady. His agent, George Anson, arrived in Turin more than a month ago, but he's never had a chance to meet with Fabio Paratici, as Juventus have been closed in a bubble for several days. So, I mean, it may just be a case that he can't speak to him because of sort of the lockdown situation or the situation with COVID, but there's already stories doing the rounds that maybe United could go back in for Dybala if he doesn't sign a deal. I don't even remember, well, I'm sure you do remember, but in the summer of 2019 we were constantly linked with Dybala. It looked like it was going to happen at one point. At one point, ironically, it was his agent fees that were being touted as the reason it wasn't happening. Then it was supposedly the fact that he wanted mega bucks to come here, he wanted massive wages, and the club were reluctant to do that. It felt a little bit like the Alexis Sanchez scenario, so United and Dybala didn't happen. United reportedly walked away from that deal. Who knows, maybe we'll go back in for him. One thing's for certain, if he doesn't sign a new deal, we will be linked with him. That is guaranteed. A player like that, who has already been linked with us, who doesn't sign a new deal, is guaranteed that you're going to hear more and more rumours about him coming to Manchester United. Another player we've been linked with over the weekend, and I'm going to get this completely wrong with pronunciation because you know what I'm like, but I'll give it a go anyway, is the Turkish midfielder Hakan Çalhanoğlu. Did I get that right? Probably not. I'll give it a go. You can get in the comments and tell me how wrong I've got it. He's obviously at Milan. There's reports that United could be in for him. There was a tweet that went out from Christian Falk, and it said, United is in concrete negotiations with Hakan, I'll call him that. The contract has been there since summer, therefore he turned down an offer from Juve. United has not to pay a transfer fee. Contract ends in 2021. So it looks like we could be getting him without a fee. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Christian Falk there tweeting that. Christian Falk very reliable. I actually spoke to Christian Falk yesterday via email. We're hoping to get him on the Tier 1 Transfer podcast again very soon. So he's saying that Manchester United could be in for the Turkish midfielder. I mean, great player. Is he what we need? Very effective. He's a bit of a dead ball specialist. I think he scored, was it 9 goals last season in Serie A? So he can obviously, he knows how to do the sort of the work at the business end of the pitch. But if you saw the game against Arsenal, I know you can't just go off one game, but it has been a bit of a trait this season. It's not creative midfielders or players that, that ilk were lacking, although they weren't great yesterday. It's more enforcers. It's more someone who can get hold of the ball. We saw it with Thomas Partey. I don't want to go into the fact we don't get him, as we'll be here all day. We didn't get him, sorry, we'll be here all day. But we saw how he was sort of bossing the midfield. United couldn't really show any real grit and determination in midfield. So I think it's more of an enforcer, someone who can get hold of the ball that United may be looking at in January or beyond. We'll have to wait and see. But those are the sort of the two transfer rumours that have popped up again with Çalhanoğlu and Dybala. We'll have to wait and see whether either of them are likely to happen. It's like I say, ones to keep an eye on. You're always going to get transfer rumours at Manchester United, even after the transfer window has just closed, because January isn't that far away. And of course, when things aren't going well, people start looking at whether it's time to look at other players, start bringing them in. Also, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer under a bit of pressure. You can expect the Maurizio Pochettino rumours to start taking off, or other managers being linked with the job, especially if Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer don't start turning things around very soon, because it hasn't been a good enough start to the season. Despite our success so far in European competition this season, Premier League has been pretty abysmal, and we need to turn it around rapidly. The weather also needs to turn around as well, because it's getting even colder. Cameraman Cal here looks really shaky, so we better start wrapping this up. I've been Jay. This has been Stretford Paddock Paper Talk. As always, we'll have all loads of videos coming up this week. We'll have all the latest podcasts. We'll have all the latest previews, the news, all that sort of stuff. We'll be here every day, keeping you updated on what's happening with Manchester United. We'll also have Howson's Brew later on, where we've got a special guest, so make sure you check that out. If you're not subscribing to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. If you want to embark in a bit of, masochism and give yourself a bit of a beating, then why not check out the fan cams from last night, relive the horror of that defeat to Arsenal, because we've got the reaction from Howson, we've got the reaction from the likes of Baggers and Joe and McCullough as well. If you do fancy looking at it again, don't ask me why you would, but you might do. You might just like a bit of pain, so you can relive that. I've been Jay, this has been the Paper Talk. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.